What is up, guys? It is going to be a tier list kind of Tuesday, and we are going to be ranking horror movie franchises. But the interesting thing about doing a tier list like this is that we cannot base it simply on just one movie. So if there is one movie that is a horror icon, a horror masterpiece of the franchise, that's great, and that will count towards the ranking, but we have to consider an overall average of the entire franchise. We have to look at every movie, put it all together, and figure out where this franchise actually lands, despite maybe having some great films or maybe having some shitty films. So I think that will be the most fun aspect of doing this. I tried to pick as many horror franchises as I'm familiar with. I went to 30 because I didn't want to do just way too many. So we got 30 franchises here that are kind of across the board, across history. We have old franchises, current running franchises, the slasher franchises that I love, and just like a big amalgamation of all different types of horror here. So I'm going to get into this and do my ranking, but of course, this is just my list. This is my personal bias thinking, so this is not meant to be objective. This is not meant to be an overall kind of cumulative explanation of all these franchises. This is just my personal opinions, and I'm going to be giving you explanations as to why I place them where I do. But this also gives you plenty of opportunities to tell me in the comments how wrong I am, and also put your list down in the comments, like how you would rank them if you want to, or at least your top 5 or your top 10 or whatever the case may be. But let's get it right into it. Let's not waste any time. The franchises are not in any kind of order. They're just uploaded as I put them on the tier list, and we have our ranking system on the side. S tier, top to the top, is Perfect Run. This is basically where you can say every movie in the franchise is good. Doesn't mean every movie is a masterpiece, but you can look at each movie individually, appreciate its merits, and say, you know what? Actually, every movie in this horror franchise is legitimately a good movie, at least in my opinion, once again. The tier right below that is Almost There, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's like all the movies are good except for maybe one or two. It's like it's almost there. It's almost a perfect franchise. It just has that outlier or those couple of outliers that just keep it from the top spot. The third spot down is They Tried. This is where I'd say it's like half and half, 50-50. Like there's good movies, there's bad movies. You can tell they were putting in an effort, or at least most of the filmmakers were putting in an effort as they were creating it. It just didn't tip the scale. It's just right there in the middle. And then below that, More Bad Than Good. Again, self-explanatory, where there's some good movies in the franchise, but most of the movies are not good. And then finally, the bottom tier, the F tier, if you will, is just what happened. Like maybe we started off with one good movie and then everything went to shit after that, and you're just thinking, what the hell happened to this franchise? I can't explain it. So there are my categories, and let's start in random order. Now the first one here is actually the Christopher Lee Dracula series from Hammer Studios. Now, some people might not be as familiar with them. They came out during the 60s, and I think into the 70s as well. There's a Dracula movie that takes place in the 70s. But Christopher Lee has played Dracula for the longest amount of time, and he's arguably the best Dracula, depending on how you want to look at it. The Hammer films introduced a lot of the classic horror characters kind of back into, our mainstream consciousness at the time, except they made them darker, grittier, vibrant colors, tons of blood and gore, nudity, all that kind of fun stuff. And Christopher Lee, of course, legendary for many different reasons in many different franchises, from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars to, his real life escapades to singing in a metal band. The man's had the most crazy life ever. But as far as the Hammer Dracula series is concerned, I do think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Although I love Christopher Lee in every single Dracula movie, there's definitely hits and misses there. The first one is called Horror of Dracula. It's great. They always kill him in the most insane ways at the end of the movie, whether it's him burning up at the top of a castle, or being staked, or, the sunlight coming in and him just melting into a skeleton. All this really cool stuff. So I would definitely recommend those movies if you haven't seen them, but they are a bit of a mixed bag. So I think for me, even though I love Christopher Lee as Dracula, the movies themselves, not all of them are great. So I'm going to put this in they tried. Some of them are a little bit slower, a little bit more boring than others. But like I said, across the board, Christopher Lee is great. But considering the franchise as a whole, I got to put it in the middle. Now, It is here as well, and I figured, to consider it a franchise, I thought it has to have at least 3 or more movies. So It technically counts because we have the original It from the 90s, and then we also have It Part 1 and Part 2 from the newer films. And I've always loved It as a concept. I love this creature that feeds on fear and just the creepiness of it going after children. Like, a lot of people are scared of clowns now, but I always felt like the reason why Pennywise is a clown is because the original story is supposed to take place in the 50s. And back then, clowns were more associated with bringing joy and making children happy. But now in the 2020s, everyone fucking hates clowns. So it's a little bit different. But I like both versions. I mean, there's really no way to do the ending that well in live action. It's just something that doesn't translate. It's something that works in a book, in a novel, but when you try to do the giant spider shit in live action, it just doesn't quite work that well. The 90s version also has a lot of corny moments, and again, it's one of those things where I love Tim Curry in the role. I love Tim Curry as Pennywise, but the overall experience of the 90s version, look, the nostalgia is there. Trust me, I watched that movie as a kid, scared the shit out of me. I still love it, but going back and watching it now, you pick up on a little bit more of its flaws. And the same thing with the new It movies. I think Bill Skarsgård is amazing as Pennywise, but again, Part 2 just is not, it doesn't hold up as well as Part 1. And if you're just looking at it as a film, also It Chapter 2 of the new version does a lot of weird choices. Like, there's some silly humor in there that doesn't quite work for me. There's a lot of CGI that I think looks bad. So I think it's really good, just not a perfect run. So I'm going to go almost there. I'm going to say, like, the It movies are really good, just not quite masterpieces. And next up is the George Romero Living Dead series. Now, I do want to specify here. Okay, so this is going to include Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Land of the Dead. So only those 4 movies, because Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead technically are sort of a different timeline because they take place in modern day. It's the beginning of the zombie outbreak, whereas Night of the Living Dead takes place in the 60s, and that's the beginning of the outbreak, and then we see it through different stages of time, different decades. So like, they don't match up. So I'm not including the other 2. Maybe that's cheating. Maybe you just want to include every George Romero zombie movie, but I'm just going to include, as far as a franchise goes, as far as like a continuing continuity, if you will, even though they all star different characters, I'm only including those 4 films. And because of that, I think that it's no question that this goes up into a perfect run, because I would consider Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead arguably the 2 best zombie movies ever made. Day of the Dead is right up there. I think it has some of the all-time greatest practical special effects. Land of the Dead is not as good as the previous 3, but it's still a good movie. It's still a fun movie. And like I said, like, up at the top, the perfect run is pretty much every movie is good. And I would say all 4 of those movies are good. So the Living Dead series gets a perfect run. After that, we have Jeepers Creepers. And yeah, I'm not going to lie. After the second movie, this is just a train wreck. The first movie is great. The first movie is iconic. I'll always remember watching it for the first time. And I think it's creepier before the creeper shows himself, like shows the monstrous side of himself. Like the beginning with Justin Long just being like stalked on the highway, or not on the like on the back roads. But yeah, I think that the first movie has great tension, great suspense, great reveals. I guess I'll put it in more bad than good, because even the second one I don't think is that great. I think it's fine, but the first one is the one that stands out, and the rest, yeah, that's where it's going to go. The next one is the Hostel series. Okay, so this is one of those where I legitimately love the original Hostel movie. The first Hostel film, I think, is actually great. I think it's actually underrated. I don't think people appreciate it enough. I think it gets lumped into what the sequels became and what that subgenre became of, people just call like torture porn. But I really think the first Hostel does it effectively. I think the scares are good. I think the tension is good. I think the lead character, played by Jay Hernandez, does an incredible job, and he really does have an actual character arc in the film. Maybe I'm giving it too much praise, but I love the first one. But then, holy shit, Hostel Part 2 is one of the biggest, like, downgrades, one of the biggest disappointments that I've ever seen. I remember seeing it in theaters and absolutely hating it. And then I waited a couple years and I rewatched Hostel 2, and I hated it even more. I despised that movie. And then I know they made a third one, and I'll be honest with you guys, I never saw the third one. So to me, if we're considering Hostel a franchise, not just the first movie, but as a franchise, I'm just going to go into what happened. Because to me, the drop-off is just too extreme. Like, the first movie, I think, is fan-freaking-tastic. Second one is like, what the hell are we doing? And I got to admit, I never saw the third one, but I've never heard any good things. So I'm going to go into what happened. Next one here is Hannibal Lecter, I guess the Silence of the Lambs series. I don't know what you want to call it, but we would include Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, the movie, as well as Red Dragon. And then there's also the Young Hannibal movie. So all the films, not the TV show with Mads Mikkelsen, but all the movies. And I guess you could throw Manhunter in there as well. Manhunter and Red Dragon are basically the same movie. And I think this one as well, you know, Silence of the Lambs is the masterpiece. And then I enjoy Hannibal quite a bit, but I can recognize its flaws. And then after that, Red Dragon, I think, is also pretty good. I think I enjoy it. Manhunter I have seen, but it's been a long, long time. And then the Young Hannibal movie, I only have vague memories of that. I know I've only seen that once. So for Hannibal, I'm going to go and They Tried. It's like half good, half bad. Insidious, I kind of feel the same way. The first Insidious movie came out and, I loved it back then. And I'm not really big into like supernatural or paranormal style movies in general. But James Wan just has a way of winning me over with it. And the first Insidious I thought was cool. Although it is pretty much like beat for beat, the same thing as Poltergeist. The only difference between Insidious and Poltergeist is in Insidious, the father actually goes into the spiritual realm. I think it's called The Further. I think it's called in Insidious. But it's pretty much the same idea. Like the house is haunted and the kid gets taken over and they got to go find the kid and they bring in a supernatural expert. So it's kind of like the same thing. But Insidious did become its own franchise as time went on. And I do think after the first one, it just never reached the same heights. I think that they kind of did a little bit of a repetitive format. And maybe I'm going to sound hypocritical because other movies on this list are going to do pretty much the same thing in every sequel. But for Insidious, for me, I think it worked once. And the second and third one were okay. And then the fourth one, I don't know. It just kind of went downhill over time. So I think for this one too, I'm going to say not bad because the movies aren't bad. So this one I'm going to say They Tried as well. I think they're solid entries. I just kind of lost interest over time. Next we have Jaws. All right. Yeah. So Jaws is one of those movies that I kind of forget has sequels because Jaws, the first one, is not just one of the best, like if you consider it a horror film, it's one of the best films of all time. Like it is a flawless movie. There's nothing wrong with that movie when it comes to character, storytelling, effects. Like everything looks amazing in that movie. The tension, the scares, the horror, that opening scene with the girl being dragged under, like it's just a perfect movie, right? And then they made Jaws 2. Where Jaws is still alive, but it has its face all burned up. And then Jaws 3, where they tried to go 3D and it's in this underwater tube-like system. And then Jaws 4, where the Jaws shark, this new shark, is coming for vengeance against the Brody family specifically, and it also roars. I think if you look at in comparison of the first Jaws and the rest of the franchise, even if Jaws 2 is not terrible, you still wonder what the hell happened. So yeah, this is going down in what happened. You take one of the greatest films of all time and then you try to turn it into a franchise and just continuously fail more and more with each oncoming sequel to the point where you get to Jaws 4 and it just becomes one of those movies that is kind of so bad that it's good. It's one of those enjoyably bad movies. But holy crap, what happened to this franchise? The problem was it never should have been a franchise. Jaws should have just been one movie. Then we have Frankenstein. So I am a huge fan of the old school, Universal monsters, 1930s, 40s films, and the Frankenstein series is definitely worth checking out if you guys never have. The sequels are actually way better than you would think. I think Bride of Frankenstein is one of those rare instances where the sequel is actually better than the original. Son of Frankenstein is also very good, way better than you would think a third movie in a Frankenstein series would be. Then after that, Ghost of Frankenstein, not so great. But then Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, we have one of the first crossovers, one of the first versus films. And then the House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, they're okay. But overall, you know what? This franchise is pretty damn good. And I'm actually going to say that this one is going to go in almost there. I think Ghost of Frankenstein kind of brings it down. And the House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula can be a little disappointing because you want to see the monsters interact more and they don't. But those first three Frankenstein films are all 10 out of 10s. Like, they're all great. And Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is also really, really, really damn good. So it's like almost there. There's just a little bit too many of them, but it's almost a perfect run. All right, now we have the new kid on the block. We got the Terrifier franchise, of which now there are 3 Terrifier movies, but there's also All Hallows Eve with like the shorts and stuff like that. So, you can consider it to be an expanded franchise at this point. And I gotta say, I am a fan of the Terrifier films. I know some people don't like them. Some people think they're just gore porn, and I completely understand. But I think it has one of the few, modern day horror icons where instead of just kind of reinventing all these characters from the past, Art the Clown kind of really represents now, like the modern day. And I think it's cool to have this generation slasher. I also think Lauren Rivera as Sienna that shows up in part 2 and part 3. She's going to go on to be one of the all-time best final girls in horror, like bar none. The only thing that brings it down for me really is the first Terrifier, which I do enjoy, but I don't think it's nearly as... I think they really hit their stride with Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3. I think those two films are fantastic, slashers of the modern era. The first one I still like. The first one I still like a lot, but it was the second one that really got me on board. So I'm going to say this is almost there. And maybe, after a few more movies, we can kind of reevaluate them and see what happens. But as of right now, I'm going to put Art the Clown in almost there. And then, oh boy, the series I just covered, the most recent retrospective, the Leprechaun franchise. How could I not put this on here? Where do I put this for real, though? Because here's the thing is, like, this is one of those franchises that knows that it's bad and embraces it. It embraces the ridiculousness. It embraces the absurdity. It embraces just having this little 2-foot tall, leprechaun character with magic and obsessed with his gold coins. And it fully plays into that. He goes into space. He goes to the hood. He starts rapping. Like, what can you say about the Leprechaun series, man? It is a joy. It is a treat with the right state of mind. The Leprechaun series is amazing, but that's the thing is like, what am I going to do here? In my personal sensibilities, even though I love most of the movies, okay, I got to be real here. Leprechaun Origins, terrible. Okay. The Leprechaun, the newest one, Leprechaun Returns, is actually better than I thought it was going to be. Back to the Hood, I think, is pretty boring. But Leprechaun in Space, I think, is one of the best movies ever made. So, you know what? I'm going to say, and some people may disagree, I'm going to say they tried. I'm going to say they tried because as far as like enjoyability and embracing what the franchise is. Now, this doesn't mean that Leprechaun is as good as Insidious, but what it does mean is what you go to the Leprechaun franchise for and what you want out of it. I think you at least half the movies are enjoyable in that respect. And because at least half of them are enjoyable, I'm putting it up in they tried. Then we get to The Exorcist. And once again, just like Jaws, Exorcist is one of the best movies ever made. Often people say it's the scariest movie ever made. It is a fantastic film. Just as far as horror goes, I love how bleak it is. I love how dark it is, but there's also this aspect of hope at the end. It's a movie you never thought they would make a sequel of because they expel the demon. The priest dies. Both priests die. And it's like, what do you do? Where do you go from there? It's just like, that's one story. It's one movie. There's no point in making any more of them. And then they make part 2, which is just the polar opposite as the original. Then part 3 kind of brings it back around, and it's very different than the first one, but it's also just a genuinely good horror film. But then you have the prequel movie, which as a teenager I liked, but reevaluating it, it's not that great. Also, there's 2 different versions of it. And then there's the newest Exorcist, which I actually did not see, but I've heard terrible things for. So this franchise is just like all over the goddamn place. I think because of that, I do have to put it in They Tried, because I guess you can say there are one masterpiece, one genuinely good movie that some would argue is a masterpiece. The prequels are like, okay, they're fine. Part 2 is an acquired taste. And then, whatever the new one was, I don't know. So it's kind of like, we're kind of back and forth. It's kind of like, good, bad. It's somewhere in the middle. Oh boy, and then we get to Hellraiser, which I'm going to be making an extensive video on at the end of the year. Hopefully getting it out by Halloween. And listen, holy shit, the Hellraiser movies are bad. I unabashedly love the first Hellraiser. I think the original Hellraiser is a goddamn horror masterpiece, and I will stand on the hill and sing its praises for the rest of my life. I love the original Hellraiser. Top 3 horror movie of all time for me. Absolutely adore that film, the first one. The second one, which I know a lot of people still say they like, I think is okay. I think it's the least bad of the sequels. But after part 2, holy crap. This just goes off a hill and doesn't stop going. Because unlike Jeepers Creepers, that only has like 2 or 3 sequels after that, the Hellraiser franchise just keeps going. You got Bloodline, you got Deader, you got Hellworld. Like, how long is this shit gonna go on for? It just keeps on going. And then they recast Doug Bradley at one point, and then the newest Hellraiser, it just keeps on going, man. And you're like, what is going on? And so as much as it pains me, as much as I love the original film, there's no question to me that this goes in, what the hell happened, man? Like, okay, you could count the first 2 as being good, but the amount of bad movies after that just is too catastrophic. It has to go in the lowest tier. Next up is Nightmare on Elm Street. Again, I am a gigantic Nightmare on Elm Street fan, gigantic Wes Craven fan. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, one of my all-time favorites. I love New Nightmare. I will sing the praises of that movie for as long as I live as well. And I think most of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are legitimately good, but it does unfortunately have a couple of stinkers in there. I mean, if we're counting the entire franchise, as much as I hate to do it, I have to count the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010, which is personally probably my least favorite movie of all time. Just watch my retrospective for all the reasons. I don't need to go into that here. As far as the Robert Englund, traditional Elm Street series, I think they're all pretty much good, except for 5 and 6, The Dream Child and Freddy's Dead. They have good things in them, but overall, they're just not really my cup of tea. But everything else, I love. Nightmare 1 through 4, I love. Freddy vs. Jason, I love. It just has 2 subpar movies and then 1 absolute abysmal train wreck in the remake. So as much as I want to put it up in perfect run, I got to put it in almost there. There's just a couple of movies that bring it down, but it really, really is almost a perfect run for me. Next up is the VHS movies, and I will be honest, I haven't seen all of the VHS movies. I wanted to fill this up with at least 30 franchises, but I think everyone can pretty much agree that we could put this up in They Tried, simply in the matter of fact that, it's an anthology series, and so things are going to be hit or miss for people. You know what I mean? Even the shorts in the movies themselves, some of them are going to be up higher and some of them are going to be up lower. I think if you put them all together, it's a pretty much a mixed bag. Like, there's really good segments, there's really good moments in the VHS films, but there's also segments that you're like, whatever. If I was to go back and rewatch the ones that I have seen, I'd probably watch specific segments and specific shorts rather than, sitting through the entire thing, unless I was making that like a specific binge I was doing. So I think mixed bag, They Tried is kind of the perfect place for an anthology series. And then we get to my GOAT. Listen, if you know anything about me, if you know anything about my channel, you know that I fucking love the Evil Dead series and franchise. There's no question to me. This is a subjective list. Say what you will, but there's no question to me that Evil Dead is a perfect run, because even like listen, we got Evil Dead, the original, which is my favorite horror movie of all time. Evil Dead 2, which most people say is the best Evil Dead movie. Army of Darkness, an acquired taste, but I love it. I enjoy it. Then you have the Evil Dead 2013 movie. I think it's a solid, great horror film. Even without Ash, I think it's a good horror film. And Evil Dead Rise, the weakest. But if Evil Dead Rise is your weakest in a franchise, you're doing pretty damn good because it's still a good movie. So I think all of the Evil Dead movies are good. And even if you include the series, Ash vs. Evil Dead, that pushes it up even higher because I think that series is fucking fantastic. So, yeah, no question to me. Every movie in the Evil Dead franchise is good, so it's going up in perfect run. Then we have the Child's Play Chucky series. Man, I love Chucky as a character. Just rewatched Child's Play 1 and 2 the other night, and I love Chucky, man. My favorite Chucky is when Chucky's pissed off, which is most of the time, but I love when he's just screaming his head off. Dude, Chucky is my boy, man. I love Chucky so much, but okay, being real, being objective, I think Child's Play Chucky is an almost there franchise for me because I love the original. Part 2's my favorite. 3, not so much. Bride of Chucky is like one of the most rewatchable movies of all time for me. Then Seed. It's a little bit too wacky, a little bit too much comedy over horror. I just really don't like Glenn. And it just, yeah, it kind of brings it down for me. But then Curse of Chucky, I think, was a fantastic return to form. That's actually one of my favorites. And then Cult of Chucky was okay. So I think, you know, it's got 2 movies that I don't really care for, one that I think is okay, but the rest are great. So I'm going to put it in almost there because I genuinely enjoy all of the Chucky movies, except for Seed of Chucky really is the only one that I probably wouldn't rewatch just unless I'm doing a full binge of the whole franchise in a row. But it's almost there. Next up, we have the Conjuring series. So similar to Insidious, James Wan brings forth this haunting paranormal series that I actually really enjoy. Now, with the Conjuring, I'm including everything. I'm including the Conjuring universe. So not only are we including the 3 Conjuring movies that are out so far, but we're also including Annabelle. We're also including The Nun, you know, all the stuff that encapsulates that universe. And because of that, I think I do have to put it in They Tried because the Annabelle movies just are not quite my cup of tea. The Nun still was a little bit underwhelming. The first 2 Conjuring movies I think are fantastic. The third one, you know, it wasn't directed by James Wan, so, you know, it let me down a little bit. But I do find all of them to be mostly enjoyable. So it's like it's mostly there. And the fact that, you know, the series gets me to care about like more of a paranormal supernatural style franchise, which isn't necessarily my cup of tea. But if I'm going to choose one, it's going to be the Conjuring movies or, you know, the expanded Conjuring universe to watch. So I'm going to put it right in the middle. Then we have The Thing. And I wasn't going to include this because really The Thing it technically does have 3 movies. It technically does because there's the original Thing from Another World from the 50s. Then there's the John Carpenter film, and then the 2011 prequel movie. And by the way, The Thing video game is actually really good. It's a sequel to the John Carpenter one, and John Carpenter approved, by the way. If you've never played the game, it's great. I got a review for it on my channel. But anyways, yeah, I think for this one, you know, I got to put it in almost there because if you look at, if we're only dealing with 3 movies, you know, you got John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a masterpiece. You know, no question there. I don't even need to explain it. One of the best of all time. The 50s Thing from Another World is a great monster movie of that era. You know, it was during the alien invasion, sci-fi horror wave of the 50s, you know. And the 2011 movie, though not good, though not great, has some good moments to it. But that's the one that kind of brings it down, where it's like, you know, that one I could pass on, whereas the other 2 I think are fantastic. You know, that one is kind of like, it's there. It has some okay moments, but that's about it. Next, we're getting to Scream, which Scream is going to be the next horror franchise that I cover in a retrospective. So I'm really excited to rewatch all the Scream movies. And this one's kind of tough. This one's kind of tough because, okay, original Scream, masterpiece. I love Scream 2. The ones that bring it down for me are Scream 3 and Scream 6. So there's 6 movies in total so far. I think those 2 are the weakest. However, I did enjoy both of them. And so I'm kind of debating putting Scream in almost there or perfect run. But it seems too good for almost there. But I don't know if it's good enough for perfect run. I'm very much debating this right now. Here's the thing. All the movies are that Scream 6 brings it down, but still is like it's not a train wreck of a movie, but it's fuck it. Fuck it. Perfect run. They have varying degrees of good, but I think every Scream movie is at least enjoyable. It's at least watchable and enjoyable and not like there's no, I just don't think that any of them are bad enough to say that they're not good. Even though I have a lot of problems with Scream 6, and I do have a lot of problems with Scream 6, and that really would be the only one to bring it down. But I think if you just look at the franchise overall from start to finish, I think all of them are a good watch. And I think that the mystery aspect of figuring out the killer and that sort of thing, and all of them have great protagonists. Like, I love Neve Campbell, but then the Melissa Barrera era is, she's also a good protagonist. So yeah, I'm going to put it up in perfect run. This next one here, I'm debating very much the same exact thing. This is the Alien franchise. And once again, if you guys know me and know my channel, I'm a huge, massive fan of the Alien franchise. And for this, there's two debates. One is, do I include the Alien versus Predator movies? Because they're not technically part of the Alien timeline. They're like their own separate thing. And if I do include them, then I have to put it in almost there. If I don't include the Alien vs. Predator movies, the only thing screwing it up for me is Alien 3. And I know Alien 3 has its defenders, but that is my least favorite of the franchise by far. Obviously, the first two are masterpieces. I have a lot of fun with Alien Resurrection. It's one of those just over-the-top kind of movies that I enjoy. I love Prometheus. I like Alien Covenant. I liked Romulus. So Alien 3 is the only one that brings it down for me. Unless we also include the Alien versus Predator movie. It pains me, but I might have to put it in almost there because I don't think I can get away not including the Alien versus Predator movies, and Alien 3 does bring it down just a little bit for me. Like, they're all, like, I love this franchise. Like, I love this franchise so much, and I want to put it in perfect run, but I'm trying to think critically about this. Like, those movies would bring it down. Like, Alien vs. Predator Requiem and Alien 3 are just not, it's the same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just those two movies that just bring it down for me. But other than that, I would put it up in perfect run. Next up is the Final Destination franchise, and I could probably rank this better in a month once the new movie comes out. But as of the movies we have right now, I think this one for me right now is going to be up in They Tried because, back and forth. Once again, like Final Destination, the first two I think are great. Third one is all right. Fourth one, not so good. Fifth one is okay. I'm going to actually revisit all these movies soon and do a review series for you guys. I want to do like a lead up to the new Final Destination. I don't know if you guys would be into that or not, but yeah, so I want to kind of reevaluate them. But as of right now, in my memory, I'm going to put it up in They Tried. It's a little bit 50-50. Next up is the Return of the Living Dead franchise, which is another series that I want to do its own retrospective someday. I mentioned it in the Living Dead one, but I feel like it really deserves its own video. Yeah, the last ones that they made, like whatever the most recent ones were just total train wrecks. Like the original Return of the Living Dead is one of my all-time favorite zombie movies, and then 2 and 3 are pretty good. And then after that, like something happened. Like I don't know what happened after that, but it was not good. It just didn't make any sense for the franchise. And then as well, they're making a new one that I think is supposed to come out this year. I might have to look that up, and I think it's going to be a reboot or only connected to the first, maybe. I'm not sure, but I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So I'm going to put this up in They Tried also. I guess by rule of averages, most things are going to end up in They Tried. After that, we have Friday the 13th, our boy Jason Voorhees, man. And once again, one of those kind of film series where it is repetitive. It is pretty much the same thing up until you get to like Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy versus Jason and Jason X and all that. But up until then, it's kids hanging out at a camp, doing things they shouldn't, having sex in the woods, and Jason shows up and kills the shit out of them. And I just enjoy that. No matter how many times I see that, I enjoy watching naked people get killed by Jason. It's just something that I like. But where does it rank in the franchises here? once again, I know this is getting the most amount of movies, but I think it's true. I think I got to put this in They Tried once again, because I think there are some great horror films in the Friday series, part 2, part 4, part 6, Freddy versus Jason, but then you also have Jason Takes Manhattan, which I think is terrible. Jason Goes to Hell, which I think is terrible. It's just, it's just one of those series that just doesn't quite hit that next level. But I don't think there's many masterpieces in the Friday series. I think most of them are good. They're fun. But there's really only 2 or 3 I would put like at a very high level. And the rest are just solid, standard, throw it on at midnight and watch a bunch of people get killed. And that's about where it stands. After that, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Whew, okay. This one's tough because there's a lot of bad movies in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And it really should have just been one, because the original is a masterpiece. And then after that, part 2 has its fans, and I love things about part 2. Like, I love Bill Moseley in it, but I can't stand Leatherface in that movie, and it does get a little bit too wacky for me. 3, Ken Foree's a badass in it, but it's okay. 4 is like Matthew McConaughey just being batshit crazy. And then, the timelines and continuities don't make any sense. The remake's pretty good. Sequel to the remake is not good. And then that Leatherface prequel is just an absolute travesty. So I think there's some good movies in this franchise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up in more bad than good. And there's only 1 movie in there so far. So let's make it 2, because I do think you could definitely say that the Texas Chainsaw series has more bad movies than it does good movies. But it does have, the original, the remake. A lot of people like part 2. I'm in the vast minority that I like that Netflix one. But I like it in the same way that I like, the Friday the 13th movies, where it's just kind of dumb fun. It's not a great movie. It's just fun to watch. So yeah, more bad than good. Next up is the Halloween franchise, which is near and dear to my heart. I love the Halloween series, Michael Myers. I love the original timeline. The first 7 movies I love. Like, I love the original timeline. Throw 3 in there, throw H2O in there. And then everything after that is just a massive mixed bag for me. So, like, the Rob Zombie movies, whatever. Then the Blumhouse movies, just, God, there's such a mixed bag. And so, like, there's a lot of disappointments here. Halloween Resurrection, one of my least favorite movies. Halloween Ends, terrible. So as much as I love, the mood, the atmosphere, the feeling, the John Carpenter score, Michael Myers as a concept, Dr. Loomis, like, there's so many things I love, but there's also a lot of bad movies, and I can't ignore that. So it's going to go up in They Tried as well. Getting down to the wire here, we have, this is the Firefly Trilogy by Rob Zombie. This is House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell. I included this one on here because there's at least 3 movies, so it counts as a franchise for me. And Devil's Rejects is personally one of my favorite horror films of all time. I wish just that movie existed. House of a Thousand Corpses I like, but Devil's Rejects I think is just on another level. I don't know what Rob Zombie was doing when he made that movie, but whatever he was on, please go on it again, because the rest of his career is not on that high of a level. I need more Devil's Rejects, but not with the characters, because 3 from Hell was a massive letdown. I think Devil's Rejects had the perfect ending. There was no reason to make any more. 3 from Hell, just a massive, massive disappointment. So this one, because of that, I like the first 2. But 3 from Hell is just such a massive, massive disappointment that I'm going to put this up, and They Tried also. The Saw movies, here's the thing. I'm going to get in trouble for this. I haven't seen a lot of the Saw movies, okay? But I knew that if I didn't put Saw on this tier list, that, there was going to be hell rained upon me in the comments. So, like, I needed to include Saw. But I'll be honest, I haven't really seen any of the movies after the 4th one. So, like, this is a hard one to rank, because, like, I needed to put it on here because of just the legendary status of the Saw franchise, but I'm not well-versed in the Saw movies. I love the first one. Second one I thought was great, and then 3rd and 4th one just didn't do it for me, and I kind of just stopped watching them after that. Like, I stopped going to the theaters to see them. I saw them all in theaters until the 4th one, and then after that, it's like, I just never went to the theater to see it, and then I never bothered to watch them. So basically, I'm going to be ranking this one based upon what I hear from other people. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I should move it up or move it down. But this one also feels like a they tried. This one feels like there's some really good movies. It feels like some sequels really dropped the bar, and then there's particular sequels. Like I know a lot of people like the last movie that came out, but then there's weird spin-offs like Spiral that people didn't like. So from what I hear from the fans, it seems like this is a mixed bag. So that seems like this is up in a they tried. Also, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Of the 4 movies I've seen, I would also put it in they tried. Because I really like the first 2 and I didn't like 3 and 4. So correct me if I'm wrong. Again, sorry. I know I probably shouldn't be ranking it without seeing all the movies. But I knew if I didn't put Saw on the list, I just knew that like half the comments would be where's Saw. So like I had to do it. Then we got Critters. Critters is a fun movie. The sequels are not good, but I have a lot of fun with them regardless. The Critters are kind of like the Gremlins for me, where they're just these little tiny monstrous creatures that wreak havoc and have a lot of fun doing it. And I love seeing the puppetry, but mostly it's the first Critters that I love. And then after that, they just get, increasingly worse. So Critters, love the original, but I'm going to have to go with more bad than good. And then finally, our final entry here is the Paranormal Activity movies, which I'm not really a big fan of to begin with. I have actually seen, I think, most of them. I've seen the first 4, and I kind of lost track of them after that. But the thing about Paranormal Activity to me is like, it's one of those franchises where I respect it more than I like it. Like from a low budget filmmaker standpoint, making that first movie, being innovative with the found footage style, and doing something that truly captivated audiences and was able to, only have like 2 or 3 characters the whole movie and have this new idea, this new setup of how to structure a film. I really respect the filmmaking of the first movie. And for that, I like the first movie because I respect the behind the scenes aspect of it. For the actual movie itself, the story and the characters, I could really care less. And then the sequels, I think, just kind of repeated the same steps, and they got a little bit, more budget, more spectacle as it went on, but it's pretty much the same thing over and over and over again, and just became increasingly disinteresting to me. So for Paranormal Activity, I know it has its fan base, but for me personally, I'm just going to go with, I guess I'm not passionate enough to say that they're all terrible, so I'll put more bad than good, because I think after the first one, it just repeated a lot of the same steps to the point where it was like, you can't recapture that magic. The first one was like a lightning in a bottle sort of moment, and the rest just kind of fell flat. I have no interest to ever watch them again. So there you have it, guys. There is my ranking of horror franchises. Obviously, this isn't every horror franchise that exists. I picked 30 of them because I felt like that would be a good number, and I tried to pick franchises that I'm, the most familiar with. So let me know what you guys think of my ranking down below. Also, thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up and a comment. Help it out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I have Patreon channel memberships linked down below. Could use the help right now. Channel's not doing so hot. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. There's a tier list playlist if you guys want to check it out. But other than that, have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time.